Hello and welcome to the virtual edition of our year-round screening series, Film Independent Presents, and to this Q&A for the new IFC film Settlers by Wyatt Rockefeller. I'm Jen Wilson, Senior Programmer with Film Independent. Thank you to our sponsors, HIFPA and Vision Media. And now please welcome our special guests from the film Settlers, writer-director Wyatt Rockefeller and actor Brooklyn Prince. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for being with us today.
No, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great to be on.
There's nothing to be scared of. No one's gonna mess with you, kid.
Okay, you step right here.
Lock the door behind me.
Dad!
So because we do have so many members of Film Independent that are aspiring filmmakers, I usually like to start off the Q&As just asking our guests how you got your start in your craft. So for Wyatt, how did you become a filmmaker?
So I was actually 11 years old, which is, Brooklyn, are you 11 now? Are you?
I'm 11.
I think you're 11, right? 11 now. Yeah, so you got a few years on me. But I took an AV class on a whim, and the teacher said, "Okay, everyone come up with a short movie idea, and then we'll vote on it, and whoever's wins, we'll make your short, and you get to be the director." And mine won, and I was hooked, and spent the rest of my childhood basically making little movies with whoever I could talk to be into. It was basically my younger brother and friends, and my dad's Hi8 camcorder. And went from there. Ended up doing some other things for a while, but it was when I did come back to it, and when we had Settlers ready to go, it started with just my wife and I. She was one of the producers on it, Julie Fabrizio. We had the script, and we were thinking, wouldn't it be great if we could find someone like Brooklyn Prince to play Remy? And then out of the blue, I got a call one night from this junior agent at UTA, and he said, I got hold of the script. I really like it. Who are you imagining? Sure, they rep Brooklyn, and I sent it to her and her parents, and she attached, and that made it all go. That was the beginning.
That's the dream, right? Is to be able to get the cast that you envisioned when you were writing it. What about for you, Brooklyn? How did you become a performer?
I became an actress. My mom has always loved acting. She was did little Broadway stuff and all that. And I like to say I inherited the gene from her because she worked for an agency, and they were like, "Oh, Brooklyn's so cute. Just have her come in for this one shoot. They're looking for a cute little girl to do this." And my mom was like, "I don't know." And my grandma, was like, "Just do it. Just take her there." And I was in front of the camera in 2 seconds, cheese. And mom was like, "Do you like doing this?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I love it." So I went to commercials, and then, little films, and then to the Florida Project, which just absolutely blew me away from doing little commercials and little photo shoots. And that's how I got my start.
Awesome. So, yeah, Wyatt. Sorry, say Riot. Wyatt. You envisioned that you wanted Brooklyn to be a part of this, and then invited her. Brooklyn, for you, what was it that was exciting about this project that made you want to do it?
Well, at first my parents read the script, and they were like, "There's this film. It's about this girl on Mars with her family." And I was interested in it because it was a sci-fi, but then I heard that it was Wyatt, and he was a first director, and I know what it's like to be a first director, and I felt so special when people would give me a chance. I want to help Wyatt on this. I want to be in film. I want to do this for Wyatt. And I was going through a really hard time then, and when I was when like that came about, that project. And I saw Remy as almost like a diary for me to like filter in my feelings and filter in my emotions. And it honestly, that was like my saving grace in that time, was getting to be able to do that movie and getting to meet Wyatt and his beautiful cast and everyone.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. Wyatt, for you, what do you think was the inspiration for writing this?
Well, the original spark came from a feeling. I was in the woods with my dad, and it was snowing. You know, it snows, it can absorb all the ambient noise so that it's quiet in a way we almost never hear. And there was something very eerie about that. I remember looking over at the tree line and imagine being watched by something, and looking up ahead at my dad, and in his old brown coat, and imagined a guy patrolling the outskirts of his farm, and started thinking about what he might be guarding against. And by the time we got back to the house, I had basically the whole plot of the film up to when Joey puts the gun down on the table. And I think that when a story tells itself, that's a good sign. But it also really hit me at a gut level. Just, wow, that's really dark. And but it wasn't actually until I had the idea to set it on Mars. Mars as it may be one day, when we've partly terraformed it, made it partly habitable, that I thought, oh, this really could be a feature. This really could be worth an hour and a half of people's time, because it unlocked all these thematic and visual opportunities that weren't there when it was just a plot.
So are you a science fiction fan, or I guess this is sort of sci-fi Western? Are you a particular fan of any sci-fi or Western films?
Well, yes, in both genres. I think on the Western front, particularly inspirational to me, beyond the sort of the earlier ones, like the sort of John Ford era, were the Sam Peckinpah, Sergio Leone era. And I think visually they were especially inspirational as we were thinking through what this would look like, and as I was writing as well. And then on the sci-fi front, I mean, I was the biggest Star Wars nerd growing up, and so it definitely is very much baked into my DNA. But I think probably no other film in that genre had as much influence as probably Alien, and for a very specific reason. You see, I mean, we were working on a limited budget. I sat down to keep it very contained. We're mostly in one location, just a few actors. And Alien does just the most amazing job at showing you very, very little. Almost everything we see beyond the ship is through a screen. You know, it's projected onto a screen, or it's text, or we see, you know, a ship through the mist through a video camera that someone's, you know, watching on their own monitor. And so we see actually very little, but they do such a good job with that our imaginations just fill the entire universe that they've constructed. And I very much believe that the most cinematic images are the ones that are not actually on screen. They're the ones that are just off screen, or the ones that are in your head, because they will just always be that much more vivid when they're in your imagination as opposed to what you're seeing.
So a major character in this who I loved is Steve the robot, Remy's best friend. Can you talk about how you created Steve the robot? Is that was sort of a special effects character, or did he actually move and was remote controlled or something like that? How was that created?
Well, so initially when I decided to write a robot into the film, and when it was actually, I was imagining a project that was much more modest in scale, I naively thought, oh, we can get away with kind of a guy with a remote control, and like we can build something on top of that. And as the cast came on board and the project expanded, we were able to dream a little bit bigger. And that collaboration around Steve was just one of the more fun things of the whole project, because so Steve was a mix of VFX and puppet. And that was partly because I really wanted a puppet on set that the actors could play off. But it was also partly for budget reasons too. You know, we had to be very sparing with our VFX. And so the shots, the more elaborate movements are basically VFX for the most part. And all the close-ups and everything where you're seeing Brooklyn interact with Steve are the puppet. And we were very lucky to have this incredible kind of legendary puppeteer, William Todd Jones, who has worked on things all the way back to Labyrinth, and was able to really bring him to life and give him a personality without saying anything. You know, I was very clear I wanted his movements to be all that he could do to communicate, that he couldn't talk, he couldn't even vocalize like R2-D2 with beeps and boops or something. And but it was just such a rewarding collaboration to try to figure out across the departments, working with all the departments, what he would look like, really starting from his function and building from there and designing around his specific function within the homestead and their terraforming operation. And then figuring out how we're going to execute that both physically in the real world and through VFX. And if for those curious to learn more, talkhouse.com, I wrote an article for them about the whole creative process. As you can see, I could, talk your heads off about it. So
for Brooklyn, what was it like to act opposite a sort of pretend or a character like Steve, who's a puppet?
I have always wanted to work with like one of the Muppets. So I guess like that, or one of the Sesame Street characters. I'm such a nerd about that stuff. But that was like my chance to work with a puppet. And it was honestly like a real co-star. I mean, he was very needy. He wanted it was a mess, but he was a great actor to work with. But I got to work him with the sticks. I got to go behind and like work with him with the sticks. And like Wyatt said, even like that smiley face that she draws on with chalk, like says so much about who Steve is that people absolutely just fall in love with him. Like my family was all like, Steve, we love Steve.
Yeah, you could do some merchandising around Steve, I think. Create some Steve dolls. Some
Steve shirts.
Steve shirts, Steve hats. I loved Steve. For Brooklyn, in creating this character that you play, Remy, did you sort of imagine for yourself what you think it would be like to live on Mars, or what you think it would be like to be one of the first people to live on Mars?
I mean, yeah, when you create a character, you create the character not only by who they are and who you think they are and building up their past and future, it's also the surroundings around them that affect their personality and who they are and how they've grown up. And Remy's grown up on Mars. So I had to incorporate that, like, there's like she's a little bit socially awkward because like she's grown up like the only kid on Mars, and she only had her mom and her dad. So when Jerry comes in, she's very quiet, she's very shy. So also like the South Africa desert like just gave everyone such an immersed experience that we all believed we were on Mars when we were doing it. We were like, we're on Mars now. We live in outer space now.
So yeah, let's talk about Jerry. Jerry is a very intense character. The performances in this are everyone's performance is so strong, and it's so key for Jerry to be an especially strong performance. He's a very complicated individual. Can you talk about your search for your Jerry, Wyatt, and why you felt like Ismail was the correct intensity of person to do it?
Well, the casting process for Jerry was a difficult one, and to be very honest, Ismail actually came quite late in the process. He was the last person to attach. and we were very lucky when he did. And looking back now, it's of course impossible to imagine anyone else as Jerry. And immediately when he arrived on set, I could see Brooklyn nodding. I mean, the whole energy changed. We actually just as it worked out with the actor schedules, we basically shot the movie in order. We started with the family, and then Jerry arrives, and then Remy gets older, and Ismail he's just an incredibly talented actor, and he has a really great way of working, a fun way of working. He likes to do just multiple takes at once without cutting. So he'll give you like 3 or 4 options, and each one is different. It's really, really different. And that's how he likes to work. And I was very happy to accommodate that. And I learned a lot from him. I think we both, and this is true when you're working with any actor, just like finding the space to really trust one another, to give the actors the space to make their choices. Like the other day, he texted me and just said, thanks for giving me the freedom to make my choices. And I thought about it, and I texted him back and I said, well, I could only do that because I trusted you to make good choices. I trusted your ability, and his just approach to scenes with the other actors too, really thinking through, okay, how are we going to get through this together, was remarkable. I can't say enough good things about Ismail. He's a remarkable talent.
Brooklyn, so you and Ismail had some pretty intense scenes together. Do you want to talk about working with Jerry and what it was like for you? Working with Ismail, I'm sorry.
Ismail, when he first came, we lived in this like beautiful like glamping place where this couple, like the wife just made you breakfast, and you were like, wow. But when we first met each other, like I saw him as Jerry. Like that's like my envision of Jerry just went straight to him, and I was like, wow. And the first day on set, I was like, I want to see, because like I don't want him to be too nice as Jerry, but I don't want him to be too mean because that affects me as Remy. And then he was perfect. I was scared for my life. I was like, whoa, this dude can act. I was just blown away. And he would cut after this very intense scene, and he would be like, so how are you doing today, Brooklyn? And I'd be like, doing good. Doing good. He'd be like, great. Want to go get some crafty? I'd be like, sure. It's nice to keep that environment light and airy when you're doing that type of intense scene. That was, and when he was holding me, like I literally told him, I was like, please hold me back, because I will run for it. Like, if you don't catch me, I will literally go up that mountain. And he was like, okay, got it. And he kept holding me, and I felt so safe, and I felt the area was just mine to let it all out and like to do it. And that honestly was the best thing that you could do also in those intense scenes and those intense places, is just to, get down with each other and really trust each other. Because if you don't trust each other in that scene, it can be very off, and it can be very kind of awkward.
And if I may just interject, that scene that she's talking about when he ran her down and held her, for that last take that we did, where Brooklyn, that was the take where we said, Brooklyn, okay, let it go. And what she'd been holding back on, she really went for it. It was something that she had really worked with her parents to really get into the headspace for that, and really went to that place. And we rolled for a couple minutes, and we actually cut when finally it was Ismail that said, I'm sorry, I don't know if this is real or not. Like I've got to stop. And then we cut. And so kudos to Brooklyn. I mean, it's the real thing. She's the real deal. She's a real actor.
Thanks, Wyatt.
So for Wyatt, I have to, because there's a major component of the film a theme around consent. And um, and we don't know if Jerry can't understand why these women won't consent to him, or if he just willfully doesn't care, which is a great thing about this character because you never really know the answer to that. But in so many Hollywood narratives, well, it's probably an old fashioned thing. You would see women sort of falling in love with their captor, sort of doing the opposite of what happens in this. Were you sort of aware of that storyline and wanted to do something that was different, Wyatt?
So I really do try to follow the story and follow the characters and try to do what they would honestly do, and try to get myself in their headspace, so that we are treating this as honestly as we can. And that was a challenge, right? As a guy writing, two female protagonists, or for a female protagonist, but both Ilsa and then Remy having to confront this guy who is an aggressor and figuring out how to deal with that. That was something that actually early on, and when I was showing the script to my wife and to other friends who are women, it was really interesting to get feedback. Like a friend of mine who's a filmmaker as well, she said, you're letting Remy off the hook too easy. You got to make Jerry more likable. And she's like, and that scene where he makes a move, I can relate to that. Like, I've been in situations where she's like, well, I thought this was a business meeting and now this is something completely different. And though that perspective was so helpful for me, because it's not something that I can draw on from my own lived experience. But I'll give you one more example if you don't mind. So when we shot the scene, and this is a massive spoiler, by the way. Are we allowed to do that, or should I be vague about this?
The members will have seen the movie.
Okay, cool. So in the scene where Nell's got the gun pointed at him when she shoots Jerry, in the script, he goes for his gun and then she shoots him. And we thought, and it was actually Ismail that raised it first. We thought, that's actually pretty weak because he's taking the choice away from her. And so I put it to Nell, playing older Brooklyn. What would you do if he doesn't pick up the gun? Would you shoot him? And she thought about the scene where he attempts to rape her, which we had shot the night before. And she thought about what she went through. So, because like Brooklyn, Nell really is capable of putting herself in the shoes of her character and really experiencing what they go through. And she thought about that and she said, yeah, I'd shoot him. After what he did to me, I'd shoot him. And so that's what we shot. And I'm very proud of that, because it felt like, okay, we are following what is the act as close as we can to the lived experience of these characters. And we're using that to tell our story rather than trying to think about this from a more macro or more intellectual level.
What I think is so interesting about different sci-fi movies and sci-fi narratives is that Earth always seems to have a different place in those. In Star Trek, Earth was the place that everybody missed because they were out in space so long. In Star Wars, I'm not even sure we know where Earth is anymore in Star Wars. It might be destroyed. In Blade Runner, Earth is the crappy place and everybody wants to get off world. So in this, it's insinuated that Earth might be the crappy place now, which is why they want to get off world. But how did you envision the status of Earth in your film, or how people would think about Earth?
So when I was thinking about why they had to flee, and why this effectively, this farm that is falling apart, why and is so remote, why this is the best hope for them and why they can't leave, I was thinking about, okay, what sent them off Earth? What sent them fleeing? And does it have to be a zombie apocalypse or a pandemic? And I realized I actually don't need to concoct this elaborate backstory and really go into detail on it. I can basically just extrapolate from where we are today if we don't course correct, and draw that out to where we find ourselves, and in where the characters find themselves. And the basic premise, the basic backstory idea is that we're a number of generations into the colonization of Mars. And as Earth has collapsed ecologically, more and more people are fleeing to Mars, which has overrun the capacity there and has created tension with those who are already there. A similar story to, other colonial narratives that have played out in our past here. And it just felt like, okay, we don't actually have to say too much, because we are equipped, based on the histories we all know so well, to really fill in the details.
Did you anticipate at all that the movie would be coming out at the same time as the billionaire space race happened with Bezos and Branson and Elon Musk?
No. Yeah, I'd like to think that was our PR team that really put this all together. No, that is complete coincidence. I mean, if the pandemic hadn't happened, this movie probably would have come out last year. So yeah, it's been great. It's interesting. There's been this kind of narrative in the press that this movie is like, it's being positioned as kind of the anti-billionaires in space and anti-space travel movie. And while, hey, I'll take it, but I do think there's a bit of a false choice going on between expanding into space and protecting what we have here, conserving our planet here. I partly because of the timescales, which I don't go into, but I think we still need to reach for the stars. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that we have a livable, healthy planet here, because there isn't anywhere else that's going to be anywhere close to what we have here for thousands of years, if ever.
Yes.
And that was assuming a lot. So I think
also what I realized towards the end of this is the power that Jerry potentially has to gaslight these people as well. It's hopeful that she wants to go through the cave and see what's on the other side, because there might actually be something good out there. And it's something that you totally don't consider until the end. You're like, oh, wow, Jerry could have been lying about this whole thing, and there could actually be something great out there. But I also thought it was fantastic that you decided to have her rebuild Steve and Steve take over the farm. I'm wondering what was behind the choice to do that.
Well, partly it's out of love for Steve. And people have definitely asked, I get that question a lot, why didn't she take Steve with her? And I'm like, because the pigs and the chickens, if she had let the pigs and chickens just die, we would have been absolutely excoriated. Everyone would have absolutely hated the film. There'd be no coming back. And so it seemed inconsistent with her character to do that as well, that she would just leave them. So it was important that she found she leaves Steve as the custodian to look after them.
I also said it made sense in that Steve really, even though he was a machine, kind of had more humanity than than other humans, right? And so it made sense to rebuild him because he was good, could make good choices.
I see his arc as the reverse of Hal from 2001. Because the central question, which is central to the plot of the film, is Steve capable of human compassion, or is he just a tool, as Jerry says?
All right, so I have some questions. This one's for Brooklyn. From questions from our members. Brooklyn, you are talented beyond your years. You listen and react so well with your co-stars on screen. Is there a certain acting technique that you've studied, or do you rely more on instinct? What's your approach to acting?
Well, thank you, first of all, for the compliments. And my mom was an acting coach. So whatever she taught me, and she's such a great acting coach, whatever she taught me, I just picked up. And, like I said, I had the genes. So part of me was just like, do this in this scene and just do that and see how it goes. And then my mom would come up to me and be like, yeah, that was good. And I'm like, okay, check. That one's good. That one's good. But it's a bunch of mixes from things, and children, I think have they have a brain at first, like they know nothing, and then they just absorb everything. And I've just picked up on everything from around the set and from other actors. And oh my gosh, being able to work with such talented actors on this movie is like a blessing. But yeah, it's like, I would just say it's like a mixture of things, and just like learning and, acting over the years, and I'm only going to learn more. So
Do you have, do you think about parts that you'd like to do? Like, what are some of your dream parts that you think you'd like to do?
Oh, I would love to be a character in the Hunger Games. I just love the Hunger Games, so I'd love to do that. I would love to do. I've always wanted to be a younger Daisy Ridley, and then my chance came with the movie I was just shooting, Marsh King's Daughter. I'm playing the younger version of Daisy Ridley, so I'm like, who knew? And I've always wanted to be in like Star Wars or Hunger Games, but I've always wanted to play like characters that mean something, and characters that make a change in this world. And I think all those characters that I've played, like Mooney and Remy, all the other characters, have made a change in this world.
So it sounds like you do already like a lot of science fiction movies.
I do. I also love Westerns. I was just like thinking when you were talking to Wyatt about the Westerns, I was like, oh, I love Tombstone. That one's the best. Yeah, my mom just showed me that. I'm born on May 4th, so may the force be with you. May the fourth be with you. So I am naturally like a huge Star Wars fan. I love Carrie Fisher. I love Princess Leia. I love Daisy Ridley. I love Rey. I love John Boyega. I love Finn, Kylo Ren. I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, just like you, Wyatt. And I'm into like those different world kind of things, because it gets you away from the real world and what crazy stuff can happen in reality.
It's interesting to see that maybe your generation is interested in Star Wars again, because I know I'm Gen X, and I know many millennials who never watched Star Wars and never plan on it. And I was like, that's so interesting. There's a generation of people who feel not interested in it, but maybe people are interested in Star Wars again. I don't know. Maybe it's because there's now the tie-in TV series Mandalorian and things like that going on too. But okay, another question, and this is for Wyatt. This is my favorite movie this year. At what point was it divided into the 3 chapters? I love the pacing. Where did your approach of that way of holding the scenes come from?
Well, I just love that it's your favorite movie. I'm so glad you liked it, and thanks for the question. The chapters came at the script stage and stuck around, and they were a way of. There wasn't anything explicit about what they mean. I think you can interpret them different ways. One is that that's the person who's going to die in retrospect. I think another way is that this is the person who has a choice to make. But from a purely filmmaking perspective and from a pacing perspective, what they did is really highlight that we have entered a new paradigm, that the paradigm has shifted. And I'm not even sure I completely appreciated that when I was writing it. But it was in the editing process, I think that third chapter title, Jerry, I think it's moved from where it was in the script. It was close to that, but we moved it to right after when she shoots the pig, right? When older Remy shoots the pig. And that felt right because when we see her do that, you know, she could have pointed the gun and shot at Jerry, but she's coexisting with him now. She doesn't choose to shoot him. And that is a huge paradigm shift from where we just were moments before in the film and 10 years before in chronologically. And so that felt like, no, that's the place to put it.
Okay, well, I think it's about time to go, but I wanted to thank you both so much for joining me, and congratulations. This is such a strong first feature. Wyatt, do you have plans for what you're going to do next?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I am writing a script right now about the man who killed Rasputin. His name was Prince Felix Yusupov, and he was a very interesting character in his own right. And so it's sort of a murder thriller, but like kind of funny. It'll be funnier than Settlers, hopefully. Yeah, I'm very excited about it though, and so hopefully it won't be too long before we get to make it.
This film came out the end of July, right? And it's available for rent right now online for anybody who wants to watch again or recommend it to someone else, right?
Yes, yeah. Okay. So it's yeah, exactly.
Is it in theaters or just virtual right now?
It's still in a few theaters. I think mostly it's had its theatrical run, and so it's now, but it's on all the main on-demand platforms, iTunes, Amazon, etc.
Well, congratulations to both of you. A really incredible performance, Brooklyn. I look forward to seeing what else you're working on this year, and you too, Wyatt. I'm looking forward to your next film.
Oh, well, thanks so much. And thanks for having us on. This has been just a real treat and an honor. Really.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.